Welcome, everyone. This is the 29th of September 2022. This is the infrastructure group conversation. So welcome, everyone. Victor, thank you so much for giving us the first question. Do you want to verbalize?
Sure, thank you. So the question is was Backstage ever discussed in the infra group as an interesting tool for you or not? The rationale behind it, it comes up from more and more often actually with customers as I interview them about the usage of various tools. And we had a few initiatives within the product team to look into it. There were related ideas to be a service register into GitLab and stuff like that. All of those are linked there, at least some of those are linked there. And recently I had the idea that you might be open to use Backstage. I don't know if it was discussed or not, that's the question. And it's kind of a form of dog fooding. So we learn more about it. We get hands-on experience within GitLab with Backstage. That was the idea. And the question is if you have any previous discussions and what do you think about the idea?
Fantastic. Does anyone want to jump in? My personal experience is no, I haven't heard of anything discussed, but I don't know if anyone else from infra has.
I can try and jump in here. So this tool was actually mentioned. I think it was Bob who mentioned it several months ago. So one of the things we've been exploring in the platform section is a platform engineering tool, or like an internal developer platform tool. And we've kind of been exploring what that would require, like what problems does it solve? How does it help the development teams, for example? And I think it's been like a very broad investigation. We haven't spent kind of a huge amount of time on it. And Bob brought this to our attention, saying that this kind of does, on the surface at least, some of the things that we've been talking about. We've not gone much further than that. I think one of the things we found, and Backstage actually comes from Spotify, right? I'm looking at the
correct.
Yeah. I think one of the things we found, and I did a bit of research on these tools a few months ago, is they often are built maybe in organizations where there's very typical standard problems that they're trying to solve. So as an example, an organization with hundreds of microservices, and they get a request every day to say, hey, please, can we spin up a new microservice? And then you can kind of like build a kind of like automatable way to do that. What we found in scalability so far is that lots of the requests we get are quite nuanced, quite different, and kind of figuring out how we build the kind of like the common paths around doing these things is quite complex. That's not to say that there's not a need for it, and I think that does exist. And I think it's something that we're going to start to explore more of as the platform section grows, certainly.
Nice, thanks for sharing that. And Philippe, do you want to verbalize?
I think you're muted.
Or I'll mention maybe there's the link there for sort of request for chiming in as well on.
Sorry, I was muted.
Yes, go for it.
Oh, sorry for that.
That's okay.
Right. Okay, so I created that issue a while ago. This is directly connected to that. It's talking about Backstage, and obviously, and selfishly as a security architect, you might understand that having a catalog of components is extremely helpful and interesting for me, just to be able to connect dots between the components. And if we have like security issues on one of these components, it's quite easy for me to just go to this kind of knowledge base and pop up this kind of vulnerabilities or weaknesses very easily. And as we're really using a lot of components, and it's going to be more and more the case, obviously, I would advocate to have, not especially Backstage, but at least a catalog of components somewhere.
Great, thanks for sharing that.
We do have, and I think it's an epic rather than an issue open to start discussing these ideas. So I'll try to find a link and I'll add it to the agenda, and obviously all input would be welcome.
this is also related to slide 8 in the deck as well. If people want sort of a more overview, the link actually might already be in there as well, Liam. But let's add it to the agenda as well. Great. So thanks so much for the question. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Victor.
Yeah, I couldn't finish the question. So for that said, the question was, did any of you ever consider to just spin up a Backstage instance and start? Because one really cool feature of Backstage is it's actually decentralized in a sense that you for every project, the project configuration lives in the project source repo. And Backstage just knows where to look for these different projects. As a result, my idea was that I would actually like take the GitLab agent project, for example, put a Backstage YAML in it, and have a Backstage instance running just to have an experience of it with a real project. And the idea would be that, like, would any of you be interested in a small scale Backstage instance that's maintained by, I don't know, by Philip, by you, for example, just to learn more about it in a real use case, or it's too early for that?
I would certainly be interested in exploring that. I don't know whether it's too early per se. I think, as I said, when we started looking at this, we didn't know necessarily what problem we would apply it to. So if you have a problem that you think this could help, then I'm more.
In my case, it's discovery.
Yeah, perfect. So I'm more than happy to look into that if it can make our lives easier.
Thank you.
Awesome. Great. And Jairus, you have the next question.
Hi, this is Jairus. Any plans on expanding SaaS into other availability zones in GCP?
Yeah, Jairus, this is Steve. Actually, one thing I noted, I went back after I typed a bunch of stuff here and recognized that your question was about availability zones. And I don't know if you meant to ask about regions or not, but I'll kind of, most of my answer is about regions. But first off, I will say that our current implementation of GitLab.com is already in multiple availability zones within US East, and is designed architecturally from that perspective. And we have had various failures that have happened over time that we have survived, others that have caused some incidents and everything, and we're continually working to better weather problems that happen in individual GCP zones. That being said, we also have lots of reasons. There's like a lot of drivers for us to be in multiple regions, for resiliency reasons, for customers that want us to be kind of closer to them geographically, and then one of the reasons it comes up a lot is for like data sovereignty, data locality reasons, where customers want their data to exist in a given region, and so the kind of, I think there's one current effort that allows for that in certain cases, and then there's a much longer term effort that probably will be the solution more generally for being in different regions. So the first that exists today is GitLab Dedicated, and so for customers that kind of meet the profile of a single tenant dedicated environment, GitLab Dedicated does allow for the choice of region. It's limited in some ways, but as we move forward, the idea that we will have many customers across many different regions is exactly what we would think, what we endeavor to have happen for Dedicated. The other is the effort around pods, which currently is in some early architectural work, and basically takes the single implementation or gives us a choice going forward of not just having the GitLab.com multi-tenant be within one single stack, but instead kind of building out multiple stacks. And then we would have to, there's a whole set of kind of migration tools we'd have to build and everything in order to actually accomplish maybe a different state at some point in the future, probably in FY25 or even FY26, where potentially all of our multi-tenant services are actually on pods, and those pod architectures themselves would be in different regions, and that would also allow for servicing a lot of the kind of demand drivers for being in different regions. Did that address your question?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Yeah, I did meant to say regions. I don't know why I put it availability zones.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, the terminology across the different clouds and everything can confuse a lot of that as well. So, and if anyone else has other insight to add to that, kind of did basically very high level from what my understanding is of all the things we're working on.
Great, thanks a lot, Steve. Does anybody else have any questions that they would like to verbalize? One thing I do want to draw everyone's attention to is slide 3 of the slide deck. Again, availability score looking great, so well done everyone there. And we have a couple of slides in the update section, particularly slide 9, which is a sort of overview, but also a request for feedback. So please do take a look at that and let us know if you have any other ideas. So just before I end this call, final chance for anyone, if you have anything you'd like to verbalize, please do so. No, in which case, thanks very much for all the questions and all the answers. Appreciate you all joining us today, and we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot.